At issue is, what do people experience in their communities as a community is going through stages? And the questions I hear them ask over and over again is, why is it that we keep trying things and they don't work out? Why is it that people make promises and they're not fulfilled? Why is it that we created a new initiative with great fanfare and then 2 years later I don't hear anything more about it? Why is it, they ask, that we can't make more progress in this community? And part of the answer, not the whole answer, but part of the answer is this. We have found over the years that communities go through stages. There are 5 of them. And what we find over and over again is that communities continually believe they're in the growth stage, which is where communities have the greatest civic capacity, leaders, organizations, networks, relationships, in order to push change forward. But the dilemma is that most communities aren't in the growth stage. They're somewhere long before it. And so we keep trying initiatives and efforts and programs where communities simply do not have the civic capacity to help support the initiative to move forward. And this happens over and over and over again in communities. Some communities are in denial, but more communities than not want to move forward, and they feel stuck. They have deep aspirations for moving forward, and the question they ask us is, how can I take my aspirations and make them real? And part of the answer is, we need to calibrate our responses, our strategies, our interventions, our programs and initiatives to fit the civic capacity that we have. And what's so interesting about these stages is that you cannot skip a stage. You can't violate it. But if you can align your strategies and interventions with the capacity that you have, you can actually accelerate your movement through them. And so what we do right now, many times, is we undercut our ability to move forward. And if we understood what stage of life our community was in, and we could figure out how much capacity we have, and we could align our programs and initiatives and strategies with that capacity, we could actually accelerate our movement. That's an enormous opportunity for a lot of communities. One of the things that we try to do in a lot of communities, you know, I'm sure that you've experienced where people get up at a press conference and announce with great fanfare a new initiative that's going to change the life of the community, and then maybe even they start to hang banners from the street signs and put bus boards on the sides of buses which announce a new logo and slogan that tell us everything has changed. The problem with that is that no community changes that way. It's the equivalent of dropping a boulder into a lake, and as you drop the boulder in, there are concentric circles that move out and never touch, and eventually they disappear. Just like a lot of our civic initiatives. They disappear, or the report sits on a shelf and gets dusty. Here's an alternative way to think about it, sort of a way to think publicly about it. Change occurs, think again also about this lake. Change occurs when we drop little pebbles into the lake, little civic actions into the lake. And those create pockets of strength. We all know about them in our communities if we think about them. What happens over time is as those pockets start to take root, as those pebbles get dropped into the lake, they ripple out. And as they ripple out, eventually they begin to touch. And as they touch, what happens is they begin to create the social fabric of a community. New networks form. And as those networks form, values start to arise out of the community from those initiatives. And new norms for interacting start to emerge. And new leaders start to talk to each other and do things together differently. And all of a sudden, you have a new social fabric that starts to occur and take hold in a community. The challenge for all of us is that this takes time. It's not as easy as dropping the boulder into a lake and watching the ripples come out in concentric circles. We first have to build these pockets of change and let them emerge and gain strength. And that takes a certain kind of patience. I think we all want big change. I think when we look at schools, we say, why should any kid have to wait another day to get a good education? Why should another person have to wait another day to walk down the street safely at night? Why should we have to wait for another person to pick up a glass of water and make sure that it's clean before they drink it? And that's happening in some cities and some communities. I hold and share the same kind of impatience and desire and same kind of passion to move us forward. The question is, how do we do it? How can we move fast enough, and how can we accelerate our progress? And the thing is, if you look at big change in our history in this country, starting with the American Revolution, and then you look forward to the abolition movement in the 1800s, and then you look forward to the civil rights movement and the women's movement and the women's suffrage movement, all of these movements, all of these efforts shared certain things in common. They all started with small groups of people that banded together, like-minded folks. They all created pockets of change across the country or in their communities. They all started to knit these pockets of change together so that they created a social fabric. They all started to articulate alternative values and norms and ways of seeing things, which created a new sense of possibility for people. As these things started to occur, a new sense of hope started to emerge, and people began to step forward, more people, and said, yes, we can do this, we can move forward, we can do it together. There's a sense of possibility here. That kind of change is no different than what happens in a neighborhood in Chattanooga, a neighborhood in Baltimore, a neighborhood in suburban New Jersey, a neighborhood in Texas, a place in New Mexico or California or Detroit. Change always starts to occur with these small pockets. And so what I would say to those people who are impatient is, let's build these pockets as quickly as we possibly can. Let's make them as strong as we possibly can. Let's shine a light on them so other people can see them, so that they become beacons of hope, so that other people will create their own pockets. And then before you know it, change will start to occur.